Hi, this is Greg Johnson with resourcesforlife.com, and this is a brief video about a very big news story that happened over this past weekend. The New York Times website was what people are referring to as that it was hacked. Actually, what happened was they had made an agreement with an advertiser. They allowed this advertiser access to their website to push ads automatically to their readers, and apparently this advertiser was sending out malicious code, essentially fake advertising that was designed to take over computers, kind of like essentially like a virus. Now, to give you a little background on this story, it was a number of years ago. I had always been a long-time supporter of the New York Times, reading both their in-print edition as well as their online edition. And a number of years ago, I'd gone to their site, as I had been many times before. But when I arrived on their website, I began getting pop-up ads. And I thought that perhaps this was a virus on my computer. I didn't know what was going on, because pop-up ads are generally only seen on, casino websites, gambling websites, or porn websites, that type of thing. Really trashy, smutty websites that would offer, these pop-up ads. So, anyway, got one already. Thank you. Anyway, so what I figured out within a day or two was that the New York Times had decided to start having pop-up ads in addition to their banner ad campaign and other things. And, these pop-up ads are annoying. I'm sure most people who've seen them are just kind of annoyed by them, because they sort of come up on the screen in front of what you're trying to read. They don't really serve any purpose. They don't offer any benefit to the website visitor, the reader. And they chew up bandwidth. So that's, at best, that's what they do. But quite often it's the advertisers who are willing to stoop to this kind of irresponsible and disrespectful method of advertising, that are people who are advertising and using misleading ads, offensive advertising. So it's kind of the bottom of the barrel that really stoop to this kind of advertising method, and that's why most reputable websites do not allow and don't use pop-up ads. Well, anyway, the New York Times decided to go ahead and turn what had previously been a reputable, well-established institution of journalism into just kind of a free-for-all pop-up ad carnival. And at that time, then, after many years of decades, I would say, of supporting the New York Times, I decided I really just didn't want to support the paper anymore. And there are many other news outlets that are just as, equally of equal quality or better. And now, many years later, I find that they've continued their campaign of pop-up ads, and really with a total disregard to the interests and well-being of their readership. They continue to, essentially sell their readers like, so many head of cattle to advertisers, to whoever's able to pay the top dollar, So the disappointing, I guess the disappointing part of this story is that apparently what the New York Times did was they told their readers, hey, there are viruses out there. Why don't you buy some antivirus software? They didn't really take any of the responsibility on for themselves. Now, the New York Times is really pretty much alone, I would say, in their approach and their method to advertising. Thousands, millions of websites have ads, but instead of stooping to this sort of kind of smutty and offensive and irrelevant kind of pop-up ads that just come up, what most reputable websites do is they have, advertising off to the right-hand side. Maybe there's Google AdSense, which is content relevant, so it's almost like you're doing a service. You're providing a service to your readers or your website visitors by having context relevant advertising, because if somebody's reading an article on fishing, they will see some advertisement for some fishing gear, so it's something they might be interested in. I've often found really interesting products and services and websites through advertising because it was context relevant. So that's a simple thing that kind of any webmaster can do. I have no clue why the New York Times doesn't take this approach. I think their methods are pretty despicable, really, to foist this on their readership. And then the other method that can be done for as far as an approach to advertising is simply, coordinating just as was done in the old days of advertising. You establish a relationship with a business and you offer them advertising. You have placed advertisements. And these are helpful because you can strategically place them in the same way that content and context relevant ads are placed. You can place these advertisements on the website. So those are some suggestions that have been pretty obvious to most website developers, but apparently the New York Times still doesn't get it yet. I mean, how many times do you have to see a Netflix pop-up ad? I mean, I think everybody knows Netflix is available, so what's the point of bothering people with more pop-up ads about that? So anyway, I'd really be curious to know what other people out there think about New York Times, their advertising strategy, these alternatives that are readily available. I've actually contacted the Times about this and said, look, I think your pop-up ads are really offensive and misleading and even bordering on false advertising. Why don't you take another approach? They've chosen not to, and now it's kind of bitten them back. So anyway, I guess my advice to anybody out there is just, choose some other online venue for finding your news. Boycott the New York Times until they kind of bring the standards back up to what everybody else is at. And certainly if you're on a Windows machine, get some good antivirus software anyway, because there's a lot of malware out there. But if you have a choice to buy a computer, I would recommend buying an Apple computer because those are relatively virus-free. So anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Take care.